welcome to episode 2 of the Sean McGuinness podcast. So, today what I want to talk about is the basics of fat loss. Again, trying to keep it in a simplistic but applicable way that it's not too much information overload, but you get the gist and you can apply it to your fat loss straight away. If you are in the process, it may just break up some myths and dispel some disparities that you may have, so you can tell Mrs. Jones in the office why what she's doing is wrong, and you can explain yourself a little bit better when you're talking about the actual way we lose fat and how to do it properly. So fat loss comes down to calories in, calories out. Yes, I know, Sean, get on with it. But when I used to, a few years ago, I used to see people talking about calories in, calories out. And I go, yeah, obviously. But then as I went down the rabbit hole and as I got exposed to maybe a little bit demographic, because maybe in Sydney, the people I was dealing with were probably at that intermediate level where they kind of knew what was going on. They had a good grasp. But then as you explore different demographics, the people that are getting sold the world, the people that watch Dr. Oz and think the reason they're not losing fat is coming down to they're not taking enough apple cider vinegar. Say Weight Watchers, Slimming World to an extent, the waist trainers, all this different mad stuff going on. Then I kind of understood, okay, why certain people were going on about calories in, calories out, because the large majority of people simply didn't know why we lose fat and how the process works. And obviously, as a few people stated, that is good for a lot of people, that a lot of snake oil salesmen, they don't really want you to understand fat loss because they want you to buy their product or their supplement or their cookbook. And yes, that's how they make money. So we are in the process of stopping making stupid people rich and famous, and we will try to explain it properly. So yes, fat loss comes down to calories in, calories out. This means you actually have to burn more calories than you're taking in order to lose fat. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it means we can do this purely by nutrition. We can do this in extent purely by exercise, or we can use a combination of both to do it. So, for example, on average, someone needs to eat, someone at a beginner level, if they eat less or burn 500 calories each day for a week, if somebody burns 3,500 calories, so 500 times 7, 3,500 calories when you burn, that's equal in and around to half a kilo of fat. So somebody at a beginner level, they could come and they're eating a certain way. They can either start to burn 500 calories more each day, do that for a week, and without changing their nutrition at all, that will enable them to lose half a kilo of fat. So they say 10,000 steps is equal in and around to 500 calories. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's correct. If it's not, feel free to correct me. Somebody at a beginner level, don't step foot in the gym, they don't change their nutrition at all. They simply hit 10,000 steps more than where they're at the moment, and that will enable them to lose fat. Okay, so they're burning calories from an exercise point of view. We can have someone who doesn't change their activity, doesn't do anything with their training, but they simply take in 500 calories less with their nutrition. That's going to lead to the same outcome, okay? And that's why at beginner level, for majority of people, it's not that hard to achieve fat loss at the start, because if we look at achieving 500 calories less per day, that may only be, say, 200 calories per meal if someone eats 3 meals a day. 200 calories, to put in perspective, that's only 2 tablespoons of olive oil or whatever it is. It's not that much. Or we can have a third person that comes along and takes in 250 calories less per day. Again, 2.5 tablespoons of oil, not that much, and also burns 250 calories extra per day. So they may burn, what did we say? 2,500 steps. Is that right? Sorry, 5,000 extra steps. And so we can have training, nutrition, or a combination of both. Normally, a combination of both works better, especially for long term. Okay, so on this calories bit, the basic way to work out your calorie deficit, and again, this is just a starting point, is you will get your body weight in pounds. So if it's in kilos, you multiply by 2.2, and then multiply that number by 10 if you're relatively sedentary. So say achieve less than 8,000 steps per day. Multiply that by 12 if you're active. Okay, 8,000 plus steps per day. Now, a lot of people get too hung up on calorie calculations. All it's doing, it's just a starting point. It's just a guesstimate when you're starting off. If you're tracking your food, tracking your calories, you do this in an app, MyFitnessPal, etc. You will simply start at a certain calorie calculation. You'll monitor your progress, your weight, your measurements, your pictures, etc. And if your measurements and weight is going down, you are in a calorie deficit. If it's not, you are obviously not in a calorie deficit. Okay. One of the questions we always get is, I'm not losing fat, I'm in a calorie deficit, what's going on? By definition, if you're not losing fat, your measurements aren't going down, you are not in a calorie deficit. Okay, this is not to say you're lying about your food or your activity. You might just be miscalculating things. Now, the next important thing after calories, okay, let's try to keep it as simple as possible. So we have our calories in check. The next important thing that someone needs to look at is the macronutrients. So macronutrients, and again, I don't want to be a podcast that says too much jargon, but let's just try to have just enough so it's educational as well. Macronutrients is basically your protein, your carbohydrates, and your fat. Protein being animal meats, primarily eggs, tofu, etc. Carbohydrates obviously being all that yummy carbs and starches and stuff. And your fats being oils, avocados, and nuts, etc., etc. So people get hung up, they sort of skip priorities. As we said, if somebody is not in a calorie deficit, and again, by definition, a calorie deficit is someone's burning more than they're taking in, and that can be done by 3 ways, as we said. If someone's not in a calorie deficit, there's no point worrying about everything else because they're going to have no impact on their fat loss because it's impossible to lose fat unless someone's in a calorie deficit. When someone gets that in check, next they need to worry about if they're getting enough protein. Okay, and now bear with me if you know all this already. I'm going to start to delve a little bit deeper as we go. The reason, when it comes to macronutrients, it's kind of stated that calories determine if you lose weight or not. Macronutrients will determine how you look after you've lost weight. So protein, the main job for protein for fat loss, one of the main things, is that it helps us to maintain muscle. Because if we're taking in not enough energy for our body and we're not getting sufficient protein has lots of jobs in the body. Detoxification, immune system, muscle gain or repair is kind of down the list of order. We think, I'm going to drink this protein shake and the first thing it's going to do is repair our muscles. That's down the list of priorities, and it goes down even further when we're in a calorie deficit. So we need to get enough protein in to make sure it covers all these other bases, but also make sure we don't lose any muscle. Because if we look at fat loss, if we're not giving our body enough energy and enough protein, it's going to break down muscle and use those amino acids the things made up of muscle for other processes, repair of your nails, your hair, and it's why actually people, forgive the tangents, but hopefully this makes sense, is why people who maybe in a calorie deficit for too long, or maybe in too extreme calorie deficit, the hair can fall out, the nails don't grow properly, all these different reasons as well. Protein, to calculate how much protein you need per day, it's around 2 grams per kilo body weight. This is an average thing. So, for example, if someone is 80 kilos, they need 160 grams per day. Now, Sean, what's the go? I don't know any of this gram stuff. A basic palm size, say a chicken breast, that would probably have, say, 30 grams of protein in it. Okay? And then a scoop of protein may have 30 to 40 grams. A normal serving size is probably anywhere from, say, 25 to 30 grams of animal protein, etc. Then someone will calculate that. When it comes to your carbs and your fats, now we went into this whole low carb phase, and one of the reasons it worked is because if we look at a traditional Western diet, it's made up of kind of lot of processed carbs. Okay, in fact, a lot of them is processed fats and carbs, because fats and carbs together make very delicious food. Your brain loves that combination. Chocolate, fats and carbs, milkshakes, all these really high calorie stuff. Anyway, when we went into this low carb phase, a Western diet, say, made up of 40-50% carbohydrates. If you just cut out 50% of the food we're eating, of course you're going to lose fat. So we went into this thing, carbs cause fat gain, etc. And that's not really true. Before that was actually a low fat phase, because fat actually has more calories than carbs and protein together. So before that, I think it was in the 90s, when obesity started to go up, everyone started going to low fat. Okay, that was the phase. Now, what they've seen, let's try to simplify this as best we can. What they've seen is once you get your calories in order, and then next you get your protein in order to maintain muscle mass, you can have a mix of carbs and fats as you please. It doesn't really matter. They've seen once protein and calories are in check, someone could eat high carb, someone could eat low carb, medium carb. They all lead to the same results. What can happen sometimes when people go low carb is that when we don't store carbohydrates in our body and our muscle, we don't store water with it. So, to put it another way, when we hold carbs, energy, glycogen in our muscle, it's held with water. So for every gram of carbs, it's around 3 to 4 grams of water we hold. Okay, so if somebody cuts out a lot of carbs, especially at the start, they're not holding as much water. Okay, so someone goes on low carb or keto and think, oh fuck, I've got these amazing results. I've dropped a few kilos in 2 weeks. Okay, majority of that is going to be down to water. And then when they eat carbs again, they obviously step on the scales the next day and the weight's gone up, and then they put that down to the carbs. Okay, dun dun dun. But yeah, that's not true. Okay, so calories, then we have our macros, the most important, which being protein, to make sure we maintain that muscle tone, muscle mass. Again, muscle mass, don't think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, just think of muscle tone. If that's scary. What we're just trying to do is maintain the tightness under your skin. Okay, because muscle keeps your skin tight, and if you can lose the fat around and keep that muscle tone in check, you are going to achieve a nice, sexy looking body after. And people that don't eat sufficient protein combined with a lot of weight loss, what's going to happen is it's going to look very deflated. Your skin is going to be a bit looser, a bit saggier, and that's obviously not what we want. You want to be a better looking version of yourself. You don't just want to be a smaller looking version of yourself. So someone who hasn't had this in check, protein, they hadn't weight trained properly, they could lose 20, 30, 40 kilos, but they mightn't look any better. Okay, they might just be a smaller version of themselves. They haven't achieved that tone type physique that we want. Okay, the third most important thing. Now, just to note, probably 70-80% of your fat loss results will come down to just getting your calories and macros in order. Okay, After this is kind of the icing on top. Now, don't skip ahead in most cases unless you have the first two bases covered. And we will look at how to achieve that after. Let's just go through the main stuff. Next important is your micronutrients, and this is basically all the vitamins and minerals. Okay, this isn't, it's probably not most important at the start because your body's kind of well versed at partitioning nutrients, especially when we're not getting enough. But when we think of fat loss, and Owen Lacey says this very good. He's a strength / nutritionist in Ireland, and he says when we look at calorie deficits, or when we look at calorie deficits, what we're also looking at is nutrient deficits. Because if you're not taking in as much food, you have a potential to then develop a lot of nutrient and vitamin deficiencies, which can over time dictate your plan, your energy, your health, your hormones, etc. Okay, so he used the example of people that go vegan. Okay, they might work out well starting off. Okay, now, anytime I'm talking about vegan, don't take it so personal. I'm talking about it in the same bracket as most of the diets. I'm not talking about it for ethical reasons. That's fine. I support that. I don't talk about it. I talk over people that think it's better for health than fat loss, which is not. It can be on par, but it takes a lot of work. Now, someone may go vegan without the background of what it entails in regards to keeping up all these little nutrients that they may fall deficient in, and it works well at the start. But then that person may long-term start to develop anemia, iron deficiency. They may develop B vitamin deficiencies, zinc deficiencies, all of which can start to impact on your energy, impact on your health, your hormones, and your ability long-term to stick to that plan. Okay, because all diets will work in the first few weeks, but the sign of a good one is it works forever, or it gets you to the stage where you want to be at and you can maintain that. This is the next important thing. So, if we bring it back to someone just starting, in general terms, we may just get somebody to focus on taking in a bit less calories, burning a few more, achieving fat loss, because simply achieving fat loss at the start, that will bring with it a whole heap of health benefits. And they've even seen this with, Professor did a experiment where he only ate Twinkies, which is American chocolate bars, I think, something like that. And he lost fat. And when he lost fat, all his health markers improved significantly, even though he's eating shit food, only that. The same recent one kind of on Joe Rogan, when he said he was going to lose fat and he was going to do his bloods and he was going to eat carnivore, okay, which is only meat and animal products. And of course, when he got his bloods back, they're all better because when we lose fat, it's just a calorie deficit is really good for your health. Okay, so it improves all the markers, cholesterol, your blood pressure. Most likely, when we lose weight, these all improve. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, sorry. so any calorie deficit is great at the start, but what we want to look at long term. So if I get somebody just to lose fat, even if it's with, in quotation marks, non-optimal food or less nutrient dense food, they just eat a little bit less of what they're eating starting off and burn a little bit more. Over time, what the goal should be to start to increase the quality of food within those calories. Then we come back to, say, the 80-20 rule or the 85-15, where you're trying to just eat majority of the food coming from whole foods, okay? Again, I don't need to tell you what whole foods are. Lots of veggies, lots of fruits, lots of animal products if you're eating that way, and lots of good carbs, good fats, with a small percentage of foods that you enjoy. If we can do that, a lot of the time we're going to cover a lot of those nutrient deficiencies that can take place. You can also, with the help of someone qualified, do your bloods to make sure you're not lacking in any of those. Now, when we look at, say, the 80-20 rule, and it's easy to say that just because 80-20 rule is popular in a lot of things, probably more like the 85-15 or even the 90-10. When we're losing fat or when we're trying to maintain that, in today's age, it's probably not realistic that somebody eats only perfect whole foods, because it's just not the way our environment's set up. If somebody can do that, perfect, that is excellent. But for the majority of people, and we work with, and in the future we'll talk about kind of the neuroscience in basic terms about when we eat a lot of processed food and the effect it has on the brain. But today's environment's not really set up to eat only that. So we have to be realistic, and we have to, again, this comes back to kind of the psychology of changing behaviors, in the fact that food in today's world is used for enjoyment. That's undoubtedly true. Same with, say, drinking, etc., in a controlled manner. So a lot of time, if we simply take out, and food is used as a way of happiness, and sometimes in some extreme cases where someone emotionally eats or stress eats, that's the only kind of bit of pleasure in the whole person's life. So psychologically, it may not be a good idea if somebody's losing fat to take out the only thing that gives them a little bit of pleasure in that person's week. They don't have a good job they don't currently like, they may have a bad relationship, their kids wreck their head, and food is used as a vice. If we take that out, they won't be able to sustain the plan. In most cases, this is what I've found, and you can probably attest to it as well. So it's probably wise to keep a bit of enjoyment in there, so the person doesn't feel mentally restricted, so then they can carry out that long term. Again, we always come back to, can the person carry out long term? This is the goal. This is not a fucking 4-6 week little plan, 21 day fat loss, 6 weeks. Shut the front door. This is proper long term. How can you set up in a way that gets easier over time, not in a way that gets harder? Most stupid diets get harder over time because you can't sustain it. A good plan should be set up in a way where it's just the way you eat. That's just it. It's not this diet, it's not that diet. It's Sean's day. That's how he eats. And that's always the goal when coaching someone, or if you're trying to do it yourself. Calories, macros, micronutrients. Okay, when we have that base covered, then we can move on to nutrient timing. And this kind of pyramid was set up, I think, Eric Helms. I'm pretty sure this is Eric Helms. So again, go check out his work. He graphs it brilliantly, draws a nice little triangle, lovely little job there. And it should make more sense. So it's on my Instagram page somewhere as well, where I've obviously done the same, but in my own words. Nutrient timing is next. And nutrient timing is basically when you eat your food. Now, ironically, as humans, we love the complicated things, alright? That's just the nature. You're giving somebody the absolute rules of how to lose fat, but then we want to try biohack everything. And if you heard the last episode, I fucking hate that word biohack. Just do it the right way. You don't have to biohack it. Okay? If you do it right the first time, you won't need a shortcut. Nutrient time is when you eat your food. And then, obviously, this is the second last priority someone needs to worry about. But then, we still look in men's health and it goes, the best time for eat for fat loss, why you shouldn't eat after this time, what all this stuff that it's not true. So what we're trying to say is, for 80 to even 90% of results, it doesn't matter when you eat. What you first need to focus on, getting your calories in check, get your macros in check. That would be the majority of work. Then you can look at micros. Nutrient time is so far down the list. If you have everything else in order, and if this is fine for you, change. You might just be tweaking it. You're not overhauling your whole life in a way that you can't sustain it. If you cover all these bases, and then you go, do you know, Sean, what's next? What can I achieve the next 5%, 4 to 5% next gain with? And there's a trade-off as well, because if somebody's lifestyle is set up in a way where they can maintain the calorie deficit best in a way, eating, say, 1 to 2 meals, then it's probably not best to even go down to his nutrient timing, because that in itself will throw you off. But let's just say the most optimal way after you've got these three bases covered. What we're trying to do is probably eat a meal containing protein every, say, 3 to 4 hours. And that's basically when, scientific word, protein synthesis happens. Okay, your body's using protein to repair your muscles in a sense. And to make sure we're not losing any muscle, really being optimal, we need to make sure we're giving our body protein kind of every 3 to 4 hours. This in turn will just probably average out at you just eating 3 main meals a day with a nice big source of protein in there, which I always kind of start at an average of 3 meals a day, getting some protein, veggies at each meal, carbs and fats to get a balanced meal out. And we'll go through how to create a balanced meal after. But 3 meals a day, again, somebody may have 3 to 4 meals, somebody may have 3 meals and a shake. But again, if this is not set up in your lifestyle, that comes back to the first thing. Calories, macros, micros, nutrient timing. And on that case of nutrient timing, I used to fall into the trap, and I think obviously the science has developed where you must have protein straight away after your workout. So you'd be doing your last fucking set of bicep curls and you'd be shaking the protein shake in the other hand to make sure when you drop the dumbbells, you're necking that protein shake. I remember going training when we were 16, 17. And God, if I see myself now, we were bleeding drinking protein shakes, and we'd have the cans of tuna out in the changing rooms and eating, and I can see the outfitters' faces looking at us. We were so oblivious. But again, we're trying our best, so what can you do? That's all we knew at the time. Stinking up the bleeding change rooms with tuna. Anyway. Yeah, this is not the case in most cases. You don't need to have protein straight away, especially for fat loss. You can train, you can take a few hours and then just eat a meal. That's no problem at all. If you are struggling, and this will bring us on to the last and final priority, which is unfortunately the most popular in a lot of cases, supplements. This brings us on nicely. When you have the rest of the 4 bases covered, supplements will probably give you, let's say, 1 to 2% increase in your fat loss or whatever it is, fat loss and muscle gain, whatever your goal is. Again, without the other 4, you're not losing fat, you're not getting anywhere. Without the first 2, without the first calories, you're not getting anywhere. So don't skip on to the next. Okay? Supplements can be used in a way, say if you have your calories in check, you're struggling to get enough protein in, you can supplement with a protein powder, no problem at all, that's fine. Again, if you're lactose intolerant or you don't do well with milk, you might have a vegan protein, you might have a plant-based protein, try to find one that's nice. You might have BCAAs, whatever it is, just to get that protein intake up to make sure you're not losing muscle. But ironically, when someone's first trying to lose fat, what I'll always get, what supplements should I take? What I would rather, and a lot of people are in the same boat, you would save the majority of the money that you get ripped off in a supplement store and just spend that on good quality food, good quality vegetables, etc. You can use your protein in this case when you have all the other bases covered and you're struggling to get enough protein in. And again, this comes back to if your micronutrients, if you get your bloods done and you're eating as best you can, but you're still deficient in a certain vitamins or minerals you need to get more of, okay, cool. Then you can use this, but try to get your bloods tested, try to get which supplement you should take first, and then retest your bloods. Again, come back on Lacey always says this, what supplements are you taking? He asked everyone. Cool. When's the last time you got your bloods done to see if those supplements are actually working? Otherwise, it's playing the guessing game, and it might be a case of expensive piss, where you're just pissing it out and your body's not utilising it properly for a number of reasons, which can happen. Digestive problems, etc., etc. We will go in the future. So there you go. They are the main things. Calories, macros, micros, nutrient time, and supplement. The first 2 will give you the majority of your results. Don't move on past that unless you have your calories and macros in order. Now, down the line in future podcasts, so I don't give people that information overload or they just get sick of my voice, we will look at how to set up your day, your nutrition to achieve the calorie deficit, get enough protein, etc. Let's just cover a few little things before we go. Now, I talked about calories, etc. Okay, if you don't know what calories are, they're little things little fairies that inject their salad with loads of energy, so you get fat. No, we missed. They're units of energy. Okay, your food's made up of lots of different units of energy. Some have more calories, some have less, and obviously the total amount will dictate if we're losing fat and gaining fat in essence. Do I need to track calories to lose weight? No. Okay, I have clients come in that a lot are probably not actually using the excuse of too busy, but a lot are too fucking busy. Okay, they might run a few businesses, they have family, they have kids, they have mistresses they need to see. Joking, not joking. And they just don't have time. Okay, so obviously if I give somebody something that's very unrealistic, or I'm trying to impair my will on someone, they might become too resistant to change and they mightn't do anything about it. Again, come back to their psychology. So we first need to look at what are you prepared to do. Okay, so you don't have to track calories to lose weight, because if someone's at a beginner level and they're eating a lot of shit food and they're drinking a lot of wine and they're drinking a lot of beer and they're doing all this and just not taking in any quality food, all this food has a lot of calories. So if I just get somebody eating a little bit better, get some more vegetables in there, that in turn may stop them over consuming or having a dessert. Or we can look at again, lots of different ways to achieve calorie deficit without tracking calories, which again we'll go through. But it could be a case that they have noodles every meal. Okay, well, if I went in then and gave this person say a slim noodle, 10 calorie noodle, we are then cutting out a few hundred calories each day. That alone may be enough to get that person on track and losing weight starting off. Or it could be a case that, say, most people don't get enough protein in their diet. And protein, one of the other major things why high protein diets work is because the protein is very satiating, okay? So it takes, especially animal protein, it takes a long time to digest in the body, so it keeps us full and satiated. We all know after you eat a big steak, how filling that is, okay? So if somebody's coming to me and they say what's a normal day? Let's say they're eating cereal for breakfast, they're eating a sandwich for lunch, and they're eating a spaghetti bolognese for dinner. Well, if I then come along and say, Mr. Jones, how about you have your cereal in the morning, you use one, or you try get, say, 3 boiled eggs in conjunction with that cereal, okay? Suddenly, if someone starts to eat a few more eggs for breakfast, a bit more protein, they're going to be less hungry. Then I'll tell that person just to get a little bit more protein in that sandwich. Okay, again, it's keeping them full and hungry. And then over the course of the day, they're not as consuming as much calories because they're full and satiated, they don't need to snack, etc. And that in turn, that person's eating less calories. Okay, we could use calorie substitutes where you take certain foods that that person's already eating. Okay, say there's, like I mentioned, the slim noodles, we have zucchini noodles, whatever it is, zucchini spaghetti. So instead of spaghetti bolognese, I simply just tell that person to get some zucchini spaghetti in there, or some slim spaghetti. Trying to make basically the smallest change that will have the biggest effect on that person's fat loss, so they don't feel like they've done anything crazy overload. Because change is a type of thing that if the change is too big, well then, especially when shit comes up in your life, you'll just go straight back to your normal habits. It's too big of a change to maintain, especially during stressful times, which we can all attest to. So let's look at the smallest change first. So that person didn't track any calories in the MyFitnessPal. They just sort of swapped out. It could be that person drinks Coke all the time. We've now swapped it for Diet Coke. That person goes to McDonald's every day and they order Big Mac and large fries and a large Coke. Then we tell them to go and get a chicken fillet and small chips and a Diet Coke. Now suddenly we saved a few hundred calories. Okay, that's what you can do. In turn, you can also do in a way where you do track calories. That's no problem at all. If you are happy with that, and every time I coach someone, I'll ask them, how do you feel about doing this starting off? Oh, that's a bit much. No problem. Let's build you up to that stage. And for example, the person that didn't track calories to lose weight, they may lose weight. They're going well. But now I want them to make sure they get enough protein in. So then we may track for a period of time. Again, it's just like saving, and suddenly you don't save enough. You may go through your bank statements. The person that didn't track calories, Mr. Jones, okay, he then may get to the stage where he's plateaued. Okay, now let's dial it in. Let's see what's actually creeping into our nutrition and get a better look, more in-depth look. I do like someone tracking, I'm nearly finished on this. I do like someone tracking calories for periods of time, because when we track, we're not fucking getting developing eating disorders or other things that you might hear people say. We're getting information and we're getting education, because, for example, there's a Boost right beside my gym. People think Boost is a smoothie place is healthy. I'll whip up the smoothie breakdown of all those meals, of all those smoothies, and the protein one, which people think is great, not as protein in it, it's good after the gym. One of those is 500 calories. For some people, that's a 30 a day. That person didn't know how many calories is in that. That person doesn't know that a Jamie Oliver smiggle of olive oil, and I love Jamie Oliver, on their frying pan before they cook, that could be a few hundred calories. That could be stopping them from losing weight. Again, we can start to get a little bit more information. Periods of tracking can then, when the person goes off tracking, they have the awareness around food, that they know what's in certain foods. Okay, you're getting more education, so you can kind of calculate in your head, okay, I know that wine is 150 calories. I know this panna cotta here is 300. Well, I'm out for dinner. How about I have the wine? I'll skip the dessert and I'll still under my calories. And you kind of start to think about it like that. So you have better awareness around food, and it's actually hard to be in denial in regards and picking out a lot of the time, because subconsciously you know what's in certain foods. Okay, ignorance is bliss a lot of the time. But then you'll throw yourself out of the water and it's hard to get results. So you can track calories, you don't have to track calories. I do like tracking calories for periods of time to develop education information around food, and then you can go back and not track. Now when I say don't track, in the periods of not tracking your calories, you still have to track your progress if your goal is fat loss, because a lot of people go hand in hand. They don't track and then they don't check their progress, and suddenly they've fucking gone backwards in their results. Okay, we don't want that either. You've gone off tracking, but you still may measure your progress, and when you see your weight or whatever start to creep up, then you go, you know what, I need to nip that in the bud, I need to get back tracking again. There's obviously some calories that have crept in that I'm not aware of, because a lot of our habits are unconscious. 50% of our day is unconscious. We're constantly developing new habits, new things around the office, and in regards to track calories, doing it at the time is the best, because you go to the end of the day, 50% of our habits are unconscious. You can't remember half your calories you've eaten. Sean, I've eaten healthy, I don't know what's going on, I'm not losing fat. Well, let's actually track the second after you're eating a meal, and you're not gonna talk to that. You'll be more aware of what you eat. Again, habits, another thing we'll talk about in the future. I'm excited. There's just so much to bleed and talk about. I'm excited. I'm really passionate about putting everything together, psychology and the nutrition and the physiology, etc., etc. So there you go. The basics of fat loss, the basis of do you have to track or not. Hopefully that gives a bit better insight. I'll always give out information, say on social media, on my podcast, that applies to the majority of people. So when I say tracking can be useful, it's applying to the majority. Say 70% in between that bell curve. Yes, there's outliers in a lot of things. Yes, you may have an eating disorder. Okay, tracking may not be for you, etc. for the time being. We'll always try to give out the best information to the majority of people. Then we outliers always in between. Okay, I hope that covers a lot, but not too much. I hope that clears up a lot of stuff you've been struggling with. I hope that gives you a basis of fat loss and the basis of what's important and the priorities and what you need to focus on. And over time, we will start to break all these things down, calories, macros, micros, etc., in combination with the psychology and the application, how to put into practice to develop the plan that suits you. Okay? That will be my goal. If I can do that, excellent. I've done a great job. If you have a few laughs or you're laughing at me, whatever it is, that's a bonus as well. There you go. Episode 2 done. I don't know how this is going for. 41 minutes. All right. Done all right. Yes, I will speak to you in episode 3. In the process of getting some unbelievably smart people on, I thought I would do a few episodes starting off just to give you a background on everything first. So as we get all these smart people on, you know what's going on. Not disregarding your lack of knowledge, but hopefully you can educate you a bit where you'll know what's going on then when all these smart people are dropping certain words and you can keep up. And by the end of this podcast series, you're going to know more than 90% of PTs. I'm joking, not joking. All right, talk to you in episode 3.